What is going on, guys? Odin here, and today I got a quick short video for you. So we're going to talk about virtue signaling. Now, the origination of this phrase goes back quite a ways, but in recent years, it's become kind of a bulwark for bigots to use to justify their sort of victimhood status when saying bigoted shit. And they're basically like, "Oh, don't cancel culture me," when you're simply using the same freedom of speech right that they are, like calling them out on their bigotry. They don't like that. People like Ben Shapiro, Tucker Carlson, Matt Walsh are now seem to be obsessed with people who are transgender. And this is, the same sort of thing like the migrant caravan invasion or Jade Helm or, Obama's third term. Like basically they just make up these bullshit stories as we go into an election cycle to emotionally whip up their base to ensure that those who are, lean right or who are just, ultra mega right, bigot fuckers, stay that way. And they want them to vote that way. And the biggest thing that they're talking about now is like transgender people, transgender kids in general. And what they do is they're writing a lot of these articles, they're pumping them out almost daily now that I see on social media, where basically they misconstrue the science completely because none of them are scientists. I don't think any of them have taken an actual science class. But we're going to go over this. And the reason I want to touch on this is that the LGBTQ plus community is simply offensive and just an affront to anyone of this sort of ideology, right? They immediately clutch their pearls anytime they see anyone who is a part of that community in any manner whatsoever. They get, I mean, ironically, they're like snowflakes that just melt with emotional turmoil anytime they see it. And then they do this weird thing where they cry out, "Stop ramming it down our throats." We're not going to follow the Freudian thread on that one. But what's being rammed down your throat? People who exist? That's all they're doing. They're simply just existing. So when like Ben Shapiro and Matt Walsh, they're kind of like buddying up on social media, maybe elsewhere. And I think it's kind of this projection of basically trying to dunk on anyone in the LGBTQ plus community at all for anything. So like the movie Bros came out, right? Which is going to be a long shot because it's a rom-com about two men who are gay. And we're still kind of the height of a pandemic. But when we talk about this sort of thing, like they put out these posts just constantly. Like apparently I don't have Facebook, but I get sent a lot of things, and it's one of those things where they'll repost the same article with a little bit of different phrasing of the title, and you just see the comment section become this like massive supernova of an echo chamber where people are just screaming at no one that they're offended a movie like this even exists, that they think that like, I don't want to see this. Okay, don't go to the movie. I don't want to see these commercials on social media. Get off social media. Done. I don't want my children to see. Turn off the fucking TV. No one's forcing you to watch TV. No one's forcing you to be on social media, right? Social media is free. The people who make the advertisements and commercials, they pay to be on social media and TV, right? So you could argue they have more of a right to be there than you. So, but again, conversation for a different time. But no one is forcing anything down your throat. No one is trying to transition you. I have friends who are transgender. I have friends who are gay. I know this is anecdotal. They've never tried to like make out with me or turn me gay. I've been at gay clubs. No one's like, sure, you get hit on, but then you just say, "Oh, just here with a friend, I'm straight. Done and over with. Unlike what you'd probably see at straight bars. So it's this weird sort of victimhood where simply by existing, bigots think that they're having something forced on them. I don't understand this. The only way that I can, well, there's no rational reason, but the only reason that I can think of is that simply that they are bigoted and they have to have some sort of like either ideological or religious or they're just a hateful person in general. Like seeing someone who is transgender does absolutely nothing to you. Nothing. If you're uncomfortable with it, that's your problem. Fuck your feelings, right? You know what? I hated that phrase at first in 2016, but I'm really starting to love it now. If you don't want to see movies with gay characters, don't watch it, but fuck your feelings. If you don't want there to be, movies with an all black cast like Black Panther, fuck your feelings. Don't see it. There you go. Stop whining, you little snowflake. It's pretty easy. So back to the whole transgender issue. So this is the Daily Wire. Adolescent chest reconstruction surgeries increased nearly 400% in US, the report. This is actually true. You know why? Because the science is there. And because the science is accepted, these sorts of surgeries, which are top primarily, I'd say about 97% top surgeries, right? And these individuals, again, have already gone through puberty. I'd say less than 1% of top surgeries are done to prepubescent individuals. And those are only in the extreme cases where both psychology and the doctors are involved with the parents and they get clearance on it. And that's usually, if it's like, obviously anxiety and depression are so high, they're afraid the kid's going to like take their own life, which we'll actually talk about because the science is there. People just don't want to see it. And this is going to be a prime example here. Tucker Carlson, who again successfully defended himself in court against a libel case where his legal defense team convinced the judge and the judge agreed and dismissed the lawsuit where they said no reasonable person can watch Tucker Carlson and take what he says seriously. I am not making that up. You can literally Google that case and read it. It is fucked up. So anyway, this is great. I love this part. For thousands of years, clinical trials have been the center of medicine, and the idea is very simple. It's not, and it hasn't. Before you operate on someone or inject people with some new drug, you run trials first to make certain that what you are doing will help the patient more than it hurts the patient. This is not a new idea. In fact, medical testing has been going on since at least biblical times. No, that's why they're biblical times. Because why wouldn't it? I love how he phrases everything as a question, like just, oh, why wouldn't it? Because that's not what happened. You can look it up. We have empirical evidence to show. Daniel of Judah compared a vegetarian diet with the diet of the royal Babylonians over a 10-day period. That's not enough for any sort of study whatsoever. So he had a control group, independent observers. Independent observers aren't scientists. The whole thing. It's not complicated, but it's essential. Oh man, it so isn't. So what he's talking about here is basically he is convinced that modern medicine seems to be abandoning the clinical trial. That's not true. And modern medicine doesn't always go through clinical trials. Jonas Salk, right? The guy who created the vaccine for polio, literally tested his vaccine on himself, his family, and his coworkers before any human trial was cleared. Like, that's not how it's supposed to be done, but he was so convinced because the science was there, and guess what? It fucking worked. Oh, it works so good. So when we talk about the neurobiology of gender identity and sexual orientation, I know I've touched on this before. This is something that people need to use. People use Google a lot, but if you're looking for anything scientific, you need to use Google Scholar. A lot of people don't even know that Google Scholar exists, but that's what you need to use to basically get access to the actual scientific studies. And there are hundreds of thousands of them. You want to understand the relationship between gender identity and well-being. tens of thousands of these studies are done from all across the world. And then, of course, gender identity 5 years after social transition. There are follow-up tests on this. So when they talk about how there's like, not many people do this, and, one out of, what is it, like 7 or 8 people that transition. I don't know if that, I don't think that's right, but I remember that's what Matt Walsh says, detransitions. And so we need to support them. And I'm like, yes, this actually talks about people who transition and then detransition, and how it is imperative that we understand the dynamics so they can transition back. But what they want to do is, we want to phrase this as like, if one person detransitions, that somehow negates all the other science and data, and negates all of the other basically inner workings of the brain of every person who's transgender. It's like if someone went to law school, right? We produce a few 100,000 lawyers a year in America. But if one person decides not to be a lawyer, does that mean all the other lawyers just don't really exist? They're not really lawyers now all of a sudden? Like, the fundamental logic for his argument is such bullshit. Like, it doesn't hold up to anything. But it's amazing to me. But let's go back to the original point where he talks about adolescent chest reconstruction surgeries are nearly up 400%. And this is the study that they actually cite, which I'm guessing nobody on the Daily Wire actually clicks on this and reads this. So when people look at this, like, oh my God, it's up 400%. Yes, because the science is there, and we're like, oh, this is a legitimate thing. This actually helps kids, right, who are transgender post puberty, to help them out and not fucking get depressed and kill themselves from bigots like you telling them they shouldn't exist that way. That's literally what this is. You know what happened after the Supreme Court Loving case? Interracial marriages went up 400%. You know what happened after the Civil War? Black-owned businesses went up 400%. Like, this sort of like manipulation or false presentation of the facts is literally all Fox News does, right? There may be 2 sections of Fox News that actually stick to the facts, but that's probably more like the weather is probably one of them, and maybe, I don't know, news on dogs. I'm not really sure. It's hard for me to read their articles. It's such bullshit. And then they talk about increasing criminal, like there's even a study done on increasing criminalization of gender affirming care in transgender youth, and how it's actually affecting kids already, making them fucking even more depressed, because religious zealot and bigots say, oh, you don't deserve to exist. That's basically what they are saying. And now that I think about it, actually, Matt Walsh is Catholic. So that not only explains why he's, such a bigot and against this. It also kind of explains his obsession with kids, but probably not in the way that people think. Yikes. So anyway, this is just something I wanted to kind of go through, where if this simple existence of someone offends you in any way whatsoever, nothing's being forced down your throat. You're not being forced to support or do any sort of cause you don't want to do. And for those people who are saying like, oh, what about the people who are teachers and doctors? And I'm like, well, that's their fucking job. If you do something you're not supposed to do at your job, you're going to get fired. That's not cancel culture. That's just the way an economy works, right? If I had a boss who was transgender, fucking, God, it must have been like, holy shit, it was like 25 years ago, I think. Yeah. My math is right. Jesus, I'm older than I thought. Yeah, about 25 years ago, I actually had a boss who was transgender. And if I went every day and misgendered her, I'd be fired. Like, in that moment, on that same day. And I went to scream to anyone, gone to a lawyer and I'm being canceled. It's like, I was a fucking asshole to my boss. Of course I got fired. It's not cancel culture. It's just you being a fucking asshole. So if you want to be a bigot in America, you have the right to be a bigot. But I also have the right to call you a bigot. and call you a shit stain. So thank you for watching. That was pretty much it. And I'll link these in the comment section.